Elon Musk just dropped a bombshell. He just officially confirmed SpaceX will IPO in 2026 at a potential $1.5 trillion valuation. This gives Elon the war chest to race ahead in the one frontier that could dwarf every AI data center on Earth: AI data centers in space. An IPO of this size could raise $30 billion or more, and here's the part Tesla investors should pay close attention to. This is incredible news for Tesla investors. Last year, Elon said if any of his companies go public, he'll prioritize long-time shareholders. Loyalty for loyalty. Right now, all Musk companies combined sit around $2.5 trillion. By next year, that could easily double. We'll watch a video of venture capitalist Gavin Baker saying the most important development of the next 3 years isn't AGI on Earth, it's computing in orbit. Elon agrees. Critics don't. But his reply was simple. SpaceX has more satellites in orbit than the rest of the world combined, and we might know a thing or two about this subject. Today, we break down why space-based AI gives Musk a decisive edge. It's part one of a two-part series. Tomorrow, we'll connect the dots across Tesla, SpaceX, and the entire Musk ecosystem. We've got Larry Goldberg here with us today. He is a serial entrepreneur and has been an active venture capital investor for the last decade. Check out lumacente.com. And then I know that this is your favorite topic. You and SpaceX are one and the same. You travel as often as you can to SpaceX. So I really wanted to discuss this with you. Welcome, Larry.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Let's start off with the announcement. So this is Eric Berger wrote an article. He said, here's why I think SpaceX is going to go public soon. After years of resisting it, SpaceX now plans to go public. Why? And he explains why. And Elon replied to him, says, as usual, Eric is accurate. So this is our first confirmation from Elon that yes, indeed, SpaceX is going to go public. So he goes and explains it, that why does he think it's going to do? Much of the AI race comes down to amassing and deploying assets. So they're going to raise money. So first of all, that's one reason. They're going to raise, some people consider to be at least in excess of $30 billion in order to get a target of 1.5 trillion valuation. So that is money that everyone is chasing to get to build data centers. And two, SpaceX uniquely has their satellites through the Starlink system, and they can create satellite-based AI data centers, and they figured out a way to make that happen. What's your thoughts on this announcement, Larry?
Well, a couple of things. I would say the first is I'm going to modify or add to what you said about SpaceX's control over the launch business and the space business. How many satellites do you think there are above the Earth right now?
I would guess 5,000?
Between 13 and 14,000 in total.
Okay.
How many Starlink satellites of those 13,000, 14,000?
Is that 3,000?
9,000.
Okay.
So we're talking about, it may be a couple less than 9,000. I may be out by 50 or so, but it's around 9,000.
Wow.
So 9/13, more than 3/4 of all the satellites above our head, are SpaceX satellites. Does that give you a sense of the dominance of SpaceX above there? The other area I would say is, you're talking about them raising, quote, more than $30 billion. And I guess you're just quoting the Bloomberg or the Wall Street Journal article. Clearly, that Wall Street Journal or that Bloomberg stringer has no clue. You don't have a 1.2 trillion IPO to raise $30 billion. You have maybe a 500 billion, maybe a 300 billion public offering to raise $30 billion.
Exactly. Yeah.
They're not going to raise $30 billion. They're going to raise well in excess of $100 billion, maybe more than $200 billion, because I've done the numbers.
Yeah.
And in order, if you wish to put, a real data center into the sky, 100 billion doesn't cover it. 100 billion doesn't cover it. And that's just the beginning. So, I think nobody's kind of figured out what what SpaceX is about to do. So you must understand that SpaceX is going to easily become the biggest Musk company in the Musk economy. It's going to be bigger in terms of total cash hoard available than Tesla. So the scale of what they're going to try and achieve in terms of launching this data center into the sky is incredible. And the type of money that they're going to need, my estimation, I did some numbers and I want to look them up while I'm talking to you, but I think I had a number in the range of 250 million, in that range, in terms of what is going to be needed. But it's going to be an order of magnitude larger than the so-called 30 billion they need to raise, because 30 billion won't get them halfway, not even halfway.
Gotcha.
Not a third of the way.
This is, first of all, thank you for putting that context in place. But for them, SpaceX, to be able to do an IPO, first of all, he said no, but now if he does, he'll raise maybe 500 billion. The amount of money matters to build AI data centers. That's one race. The second race is building AI data centers in general. And you can explain this in a second segment of this show, where it's so difficult for all the others, let's say Meta or OpenAI, trying to create it here on Earth. They have to find power. They have to find space. They have to find how long it takes them to get that power in place, 2 to 5 years. So we'll see how likely this is. Some people think this is not possible. But let's pivot a little bit to why does this matter to Tesla investors? Tomorrow we will talk about another part 2 of this show, where we'll talk about all the ways that the Musk economy companies work together, including Tesla. But in general, for Tesla investors, I want to remind folks of this post that Elon made last year. It's actually not that long ago, year and a half ago. And he said this: I've mentioned something like this before, but if any of my companies goes public, we will prioritize other longtime shareholders of my other companies, including Tesla. Loyalty deserves loyalty. So how does that work? Dave Lee says, can't wait to see how longtime Tesla shareholders will receive priority in next year's SpaceX IPO. This is the private companies could amount to 2.9 trillion IPOs. These are all the companies that are about to go IPO. OpenAI was boasting that they are the largest private company right now. Now, this is not the valuation of SpaceX today, but I think it's 800 billion. Some people were saying, but regardless,
no, it is it's not. Some people are saying it is $800 billion. That's pretty confirmed. It's in an issue, not an issue, in a
secondary sale
that has taken place, and I can give you the source of the proof. And that is Barron Funds, Barron Founders Fund has changed its valuation to the $800 billion, and they did this last week. Yeah,
gotcha.
Was it last week? Yeah.
So if SpaceX is 800 billion, Tesla is currently at 1.5 trillion. XAI is valued at 230. This is based on publicly available information as of today. So obviously a lot of this
230 is the pre-money valuation for XAI's new issue. Yeah.
New issue. Neuralink, 9 billion burn company. So we're talking right now, $2.5 trillion combined. Tesla's at 1.5, SpaceX. But if they go public at 1.5 and next year, and Tesla's already maybe hopefully higher than that, boy, this is going to probably double by next year.
I would say that SpaceX is really at 1.5 at the moment. I think 800 billion is simply the private company discount.
So if that happens, what is the benefit to Tesla investors? I'm going to do another deep dive show. Phil Bissell has listed 4 different ways that Tesla could participate in the SpaceX IPO. Elon apparently liked it. He actually interacted with that post. So what's your thinking about how that might happen?
Well, the data center in the sky is really the absolute necessity for the next step in Tesla's embodied AI world for the robot, even for the car, but certainly for the robot. The amount of compute the robot is going to consume in terms of training and in terms of inference is just gigantic. And so without being able to build a data center in the sky, we reached the limit in terms of power, energy availability on Earth. The costs are getting out of all proportion. So the cost of energy in the sky is zero. The cost of capital is very high. So the capital investment is very high, but the cost of operational is very low. Given the scale that the robot is going to reach, and even the scale the cars are going to reach, the ride-share cars are going to reach, we're going to need that data center in the sky. And by the way, the capex for orbital compute that you talked about, your number's way low. The number, and it's a fairly robust number that I've researched, is closer to $700 billion capital needed. Because it's going to cost $100 million per gigawatt to put these satellites in the sky, and if we scale to 7 gigawatts, we're talking $700 billion. So,
yeah.
Tesla absolutely needs the data center in the sky more than anybody else, even more than XAI in a way, because XAI only has to train once and then has to provide inference, to a larger and larger audience. But the bot, the volumes of the bot and the amount of audience, the amount of use it's going to be, I think that's the driving requirement. So that's the reason why I think Tesla really, and I've spoken about this on your program before, but I think, and we should talk about it in a future case, but I think Tesla needs to acquire SpaceX and XAI, and but we'll get there. We'll get there.
Okay. First of all, this is amazing because if all this is, and I agree, it absolutely is true, that the bigger the data centers, the more you can create. And then there is a reason why he's going to go space. It's supposed to be much better than, we'll explore that, than Earth. And if that's all true, which I think it is, because I trust Elon, I trust SpaceX, then not only does he have a way to make so much money, more than, Sam Altman, he's talking to like a measly 1 trillion. And two, no one else can get to space. Maybe Amazon, Jeff Bezos and his
I think
Blue
we're
Origin.
going to reach, we're going to reach a state where by late this year and early next year, we'll have 2 or 3 viable competitors for launch.
Everybody needs to go to space.
To SpaceX. I just don't think they have the economics on their side.
Right.
Having a rapidly reusable vehicle, rapidly reusable is the true economic unlock. But that they can reuse both the booster and the ship, both stages, that is also an unlock. So you get a double unlock. Nobody's there yet. Blue Origin have landed 1 booster. The problem is that it's a booster that's very expensive to manufacture, and the rate at which they can manufacture is very limited. But the Chinese have just launched. They failed it, but they've just launched their first reusable Falcon 9 clone, and they're working on a Starship clone. So that's coming. That's coming.
The race
is on. Everybody's 5 years late, except Tesla.
SpaceX. Yeah, this is important.
Tesla,
so let's listen to Gavin Baker, him explaining that the most important thing that's going to happen in the world in the next 3 to 4 years is data centers in space. Elon actually agreed to this, and he forwarded this. We have the first NVIDIA H100 in space at StarCloud. This is Philip Johnson from StarCloud. So they tested it out to see if you can have, a small testing, and that seems to be working. And but of course, Elon knows exactly what it's going to take, and we'll explain how Elon's strategy is because he went and explained it.
I think the most important thing that's going to happen in the world in the next 3 to 4 years is data centers in space. If you think about it from first principles, data centers should be in space. What are the fundamental inputs to running a data center? They're power and they're cooling. And then there are the chips, the inputs to making the tokens come out of the magic machines. Yeah. So in space, you can keep a satellite in the sun 24 hours a day, and the sun is 30% more intense. And this results in 6 times more irradiance in outer space than on planet Earth. So you're getting a lot of solar energy. Point number 2, because you're in the sun 24 hours a day, you don't need a battery. And this is a giant percentage of the cost. So the lowest cost energy available in our solar system is solar energy in space, okay? Second, for cooling, in one of these racks, a majority of the mass and the weight is cooling. And the cooling in these data centers is incredibly complicated.
Crazy,
you know, I mean, the HVAC, the CDUs, the liquid cooling. In space, cooling is free. You just put a radiator on the dark side of the satellite.
It's fucking cold.
And it's as close to absolute zero as you can get. So all that goes away. And that is a vast amount of cost. And then let's think about how the satellite is kind of a rack. Well, how are you going to connect those racks? Well, it's funny. In the data center, the racks are over a certain distance connected with fiber optics. And that just means a laser going through a cable. The only thing faster than a laser going through a fiber optic cable is a laser going through absolute vacuum. So if you can link these satellites in space together using lasers, you actually have a faster and more coherent network than in a data center on Earth, okay? For training, that's going to take a long time, just because it's so big. But for inference, let's think about the user experience. You know, when I asked Grok about you and it gave the nice answer, here's what happened. A radio wave traveled from my cell phone to a cell tower. Then it hit the base station, went into a fiber optic cable, went to some sort of metro aggregation facility in New York, probably within 10 blocks of here. There's a small little metro router that's routed those packets to a big XAI data center somewhere, okay? And then the computation was done and it came back over the same path. If the satellites can communicate directly with the phone, and Starlink has demonstrated direct-to-cell capability, you just go boom, boom. It's a much better, lower cost user experience. So in every way, data centers in space, from a first principles perspective, are superior to data centers on Earth.
OMG, he did a fantastic job explaining. So first of all, one thing that I just understood just a week ago was that we're not talking about creating massive data centers like we are doing on Earth. They're talking about creating satellite-based data centers that then all can communicate with each other and communicate down, right? But anyways, Elon did say
each satellite is going to be 1, 2, or 3 tons.
Yeah. Okay.
And remember, I told you how many satellites there are above us.
How many are you expecting now?
Well, I would think that we'd see in the range of 100,000.
Wow.
In that sort of area. I haven't looked at the design. I'm not sure anybody's settled on the design of a single satellite, but you can figure on a multi-ton satellite being able to go into medium Earth orbit, and it's not necessary for the satellite to have sunlight 100% of the time, because you could probably reduce that to 90% of the time as long as you have enough satellites and they can communicate with each other. So I don't know what the optimum design is, and I don't want to even try and guess it, because I'm not an engineer. But with Starship, you can loft a couple of 100 tons to orbit. And so if even they're a ton apiece, you can do 200 at a shot. And they've built a 9,000 satellite cluster sphere. Now they could go to easily with Starship, they could go to a 20, 30, 40,000 satellite cluster quite easily, of a ton each.
This is just blowing my mind. I mean, so Gavin did a fantastic job explaining. You've done a fantastic job explaining. If AI data centers, everybody understands they are the killer product today. Gavin says this is the most important thing for humanity, And there's a massive race. And who wants to win this space? There's the Chinese, of course. There's OpenAI. There's all the Mag 7s. They're all doing it. They're spending tons of money. Tesla alone didn't have it. XAI may not have it, but they're still, competing. And now with SpaceX, they can get the IPO. They can raise the money. They've got all the technology, make this work. And so here's a comment from Abhi Tripathi. He used to work at SpaceX, and he said, once Musk realized Starlink satellites could be architected into a distributed network of data centers, the writing was on the wall. So he obviously, you can see where Elon's been spending his time the last year or two. He's like thinking this through. Can this work? That is a moment an IPO suddenly came into play after being unlikely for so long. And by the way, when he said that last year, I bet you when he made that comment last year, he'd already figured this all out. If you followed Elon's tactics, you know that once he commits to something, he leans fully into it. Much of the AI race comes down to amassing and deploying assets that work quicker than your competition. A large war chest resulting from an IPO will greatly help his cause and disadvantage all others. And he worked for SpaceX for 10.5 years.
So here we are towards the end of the fourth quarter of 2025. And we're all talking about one thing and one thing only, in data centers in the sky. When is the first time Elon mentioned data centers in the sky?
I mean, I don't know, because tell me.
October 31.
Just recently, right?
Yeah, October 31 of 2025.
But then, of course, everybody starts talking about it now. Google CEO can't stop talking about it the last 2 weeks, but he must have been planning it though, right?
You'd think that if he mentions it publicly at a conference in November 2025, that he'd given it a lot of thought, right? Now, Jeff Bezos honestly has been talking about space-based infrastructure for a long time, but this is the first, I think, that we've really understood, what is practical, and only because of Starship is it practical today. Only because of Starship.
So the discourse has been that this is not possible. Oh, don't talk about space-based AI. That's silly. That there's no benefits out of it. Here's Gavin Baker talking about this, and of course, I put my money on Elon and SpaceX. Here's Gavin. He said, deeply amused by all the confident commentary that data centers in space do not work from a physics and engineering perspective. Elon operates 2 of the largest coherent GPU clusters in the world, right? SpaceX is responsible for 90% of the mass to orbit, and SpaceX operates the largest satellite constellation in the solar system. More than 10 years later, no other company or country can consistently land and reuse orbital rockets. He publicly stated that the lowest cost way to do AI compute will be with lower solar-powered satellites. Maybe, just maybe, his pencil and paper analysis of physics or the economics at play is superior to yours. The CEO of Google also agrees that data centers in space will be normal within a decade. If you're not currently operating a large AI data center, a large satellite cluster, and have not landed a rocket, this is where Elon said, sometimes it's handy to have a space company. Maybe a little less quick to assume that Elon and Google are both wrong on this topic. Elon said, fools are determined to be fools. Trying to stop them from being so is futile. And then Gavin kind of answered, I don't know if I want to go through that because you might understand this better than I do, but I want to get to this point right here. Says SpaceX has way more satellites in orbit than the rest of the world combined. So maybe we do know a thing or two about the subject. Starlink V3 will be 20 kilowatts and launch at a scale around Q4 next year. No problem to scale that to 100 kilowatt if the satellite mass is shifted towards solar arrays and radiators for AI compute instead of giant phased array antennas for internet connectivity. As you mentioned, it would use the same laser comm system as Starlink to connect to Starlink. An AI satellite is easier, not harder, than the Starlink V3 design, which is a marvel of engineering. So he's thought this through. He knows how it's going to work. He's got the numbers, and yet people are still doubting him.
Well, it's only fools that doubt him. I mean, people who don't understand the physics or the mechanics of it may doubt him. And some who do understand the physics and are just applying the wrong calculus. But I mean, Elon's got 65%. SpaceX, not Elon, but SpaceX has 65% of all the satellites extant in orbit today. I mean, and he's talking about the V3 satellite, which is Starlink satellite, which is not yet in orbit. They're still waiting for Starship to become operational in order to put them in orbit. But it is a massive piece of equipment. It is an incredible piece of engineering. He's absolutely right. And, the point about it is that it'll do away with the need for ground stations. It'll be able to talk directly to your cell phone. I mean, life is going to change dramatically. I shouldn't say do away with ground stations. Still going to need ground stations for operational purposes, but could theoretically talk directly, not theoretically, could actually talk directly to your phone if necessary.
It's not a joke then when Sam Altman, is that true? I don't know if it was a joke or not. Sam Altman of OpenAI, he's now thinking of building a space rocket company. I'd be like, I don't think it's a joke because I think he needs to do it.
I think he's probably going to acquire, I'm almost certain he's going to acquire a company. And if you look at who to acquire, I mean, apart from Blue Origin, I'm not sure Blue Origin would sell. I don't think they would sell, but it's more than possible he would acquire Stoke Space.
Who?
Stoke Space.
Stoke. I don't
Stoke.
know. Okay.
STOKE. They haven't launched their first rocket yet, but they have a revolutionary design which would allow both the first and both the booster and the second stage to be recovered. They're really thought it through, and they've got a lot of revolutionary facets of their design. And so, they'll have to prove their design. The size of their rocket is still the Falcon 9 class of rocket, maybe a little less capable than Falcon 9, but it can scale. That design, if successful, could scale. But Sam would be 5 to 7 years behind Elon. Now, he would be able to give Stoke the kind of money that would speed them up, and possibly he would provide the impetus to speed it up. But, it's really, really hard when you've actually built these satellites, you've invented these satellites, these V3 satellites, and you've got Starship, within 9 months of becoming operational. And you've already got 13,000 to 14,000 satellites in space. Really, really hard to catch up. Space is hard, but catching up in space, man, it's going to take some genius.
I think about this race. Obviously, this race to the largest AI data centers in the world and now in space, in the universe, let's call it the universe, matters. It will determine maybe AGI. It'll determine how many robots and what their capabilities are. And so who can do this? Okay, so OpenAI, they're kind of, he's in trouble. He's got to find a way, buy somebody. You've got Jeff Bezos. He has Amazon. He's Blue Origin. I mean, they're behind, but they're a real deal. They got Blue Origin. I know that they only got the small rocket still, but at least they have a rocket company. He's been working on it. He's been thinking about this for years. What will Google do? Google owns, like, is that 9% of SpaceX? So do they think that they can trade TPUs to Elon? And are they going to have a nice partnership, or are they going to be competitors?
Look, of all the companies we've spoken about, of all the players we've spoken about, Bezos and Google have the means. Sam Altman could possibly squeeze out the means based upon the value of, OpenAI. It's possible. I think that it's coming from too far behind. I think really, and Google are not going to be able to invent the technology from the ground up. It's just a very long course of action. Google would be best to go with SpaceX or do a deal with Bezos. I don't know, but building a rocket company from the ground up is a very, very, very big challenge. Maybe Google up to do that. They own a big chunk of SpaceX already. It cost them very little money.
They still own it? They still have 9%? Because that's worth...
Oh, yeah.
They made lots of money on that one.
Are they still 9%? I'm not sure. Maybe we better check. But
yeah,
they have a big chunk of SpaceX, and it's worth a lot of money. I think I'll check quickly while we're talking.
My God, this is amazing. I just love how Elon's like, you feel like he's behind, but no, he's actually strategically way ahead of everyone else. It
Seven to
turned out,
7.5%.
he started OpenAI. He actually was the whole story was he actually was one of the first people who wanted to buy DeepMind, which Google ended up buying. So he already knew at that time that was important. And they started OpenAI, and then he has to start XAI to stop DeepMind and XAI, OpenAI, and then XAI bought Twitter, and then now XAI is got their Grok, and then now Tesla is going to create terafabs with all of the chips, AI5 chips, and then he's got Starlink and SpaceX, and now all of a sudden, AI data centers is better than the data centers, and I'm just like, there's no way he had not thought about this 5-10 years ago. Like this was all part of the plan. It's got to be. Right? No?
I don't think he started with this plan in mind. I think he's going, where he's been taken. So that's my honest opinion. So
okay, because it's just too lucky for a lot of this stuff happen. But right now, it's almost like, okay, I don't want to say it, but yeah, checkmate to OpenAI maybe. Maybe don't underestimate. As you said many times, don't underestimate these guys. I got you.
Yeah.
Sam Altman is a force to reckon with. Mark Zuckerberg, I don't know what he's going to do, but he's got to put his hat on, thinking hat. But Tesla has, and Elon has.
There's not going to be one winner. There doesn't have to be one winner. It's not necessary that Tesla that Elon has to win for the others to lose.
Right, agreed.
I think there could be more than one winner. I wouldn't doubt that there could be more than one winner.
But the plan of if everything Gavin is saying, that a space-based AI is that much better, and then they're going to go IPO the SpaceX, that then raises that much money, and then they use all the chips from the terafab for Tesla makes, and then that's the show we're going to do tomorrow. We're going to talk about all the different ways. It's way more than just the three things that people think is the benefit of these three companies together. It's like dozens, and we're going to go through each one of them. Yeah. Whoa. Final thoughts on this? This is big.
All I can say is that the foresight with which Elon has moved, and you've spoken about this, but what I'm thinking of is that the foresight has really shows the degree to which Elon operates from first principles. Because when you operate from first principles, these opportunities unfold. If you start somewhere in the middle, if you start somewhere at the edge, it's really hard to see yourself evolving into this dominant position. But this dominant position arises because every one of his actions have been taken from first principles.
And your world is colliding because you initially loved SpaceX, you follow SpaceX, and then, of course, my show is all about Tesla. But here we go. Tesla is SpaceX, though.
Well, SpaceX led me to an investment into Tesla. Yeah, which ultimately led me to an investment into SpaceX and the other companies. Yeah.
So 2 topics. One is I'll be talking at Cyberbo's live stream later on Thursday, a live stream, and James is going to talk about, is it better to take your money out of Tesla and put it into the SpaceX IPO? And then on Saturday this weekend, I'm going to do a show with Phil Bissell and CERN. We're going to talk about all the ways that Tesla shareholders might participate in the IPO of a SpaceX. How could Elon reward Tesla shareholders and the XAI shareholders? Okay, and then you and I are going to do our second show where we're going to talk about all the different ways that the companies converge together and help each other, and like all the features and functions and products. Thank you so much, Larry. You are the single best person to ask and talk about this at this point. So appreciate you sharing your time with us. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.